I'm Setch, and this is the first of perhaps several low-key videos in War Thunder Arcade, just watching some replays of my games in War Thunder Arcade. I've been meaning for a long time to do a proper instructional series on energy fighting and explaining the basic concepts from one by one from the ground up for the benefit of new players, but that is a huge project and I haven't really found the energy to do it yet. I have a professional job as a game developer, and I don't really have a lot of time and energy left over to make things. So what I've settled on as a compromise is that I'm just going to start by narrating a few replays, and it obviously won't be as instructional for a new player, but I think these might still have some value for players who already have some experience in War Thunder and are just looking to watch a nice fight, maybe trade a bit of advice, and see different people's fighting styles. And also, I think in particular, in the case of the P-38, I might have something to offer because I'm one of the relatively small number of players who seems to do well in it. The P-38 is a plane that has to be flown to its strengths. Otherwise, it's a very easy kill, and it's basically a free kill. Every time I encounter one, I think of it as a free kill. But it's possible to do quite well in it, and I've been flying it a whole lot. I have several thousand kills in it, and maybe I can, and I've gotten to the point where I'm pretty good with it, and maybe I can share some of that experience with other people who are interested in flying the plane. Now, I'm flying solo on this mission, but I've encountered another player who's a friendly player who's also up here at altitude with me, and he put on his wingtip smoke, so in solidarity I've put on my smoke as well. This is obviously an artifact of arcade. This is not something that real fighters had, but well, we have it here, so we're running with it. It's mostly decoration, but it's also, when you're flying at altitude, the wingtip smoke tends to attract attention, and it tends to mean that you'll get chased, and that somebody else might get the opportunity to attack the person who's chasing you. So by putting on my smoke here, it's sort of a sign of solidarity that I'm willing to rope players for my ally here. As the way this actually plays out, I'm going to get almost all of the kills, including taking several planes that he's lined up on. But that largely just comes down to the fact that I wind up being in good positions for it, and I have good armament, so I wind up getting some kills. This is an interesting match because I managed to get quite a few. I get 15 kills in this match, which is very high for me. I do well in the P-38, but it is a plane that does, for me, very consistently between 6 and maybe 10 kills safely. I almost never get shot down in this plane. It has such good performance that you can usually stay in control of the fight, but it is not a plane that responds well to defensive situations. You sort of have to stay in control of the fight, and because of that, your opportunities to get kills are limited, at least if you're flying the plane the way I do. So it's really hard to get more than about 10 kills in a match. But on this occasion, I managed to get 15, in spite of the fact that, as you'll see in a minute, I actually spend a large portion of this match fighting off one individual enemy player. So to me, that means that that maybe this is a sign that there's still a lot of room for improvement. That I should be able to maybe break 20 eventually, because I wind up spending about 5 minutes fighting one person out of this. It is admittedly a pretty long match, and if I'd been able to keep my momentum up through that whole period, I would just be owning. So here I'm doing a little boom and zoom. The P-38's not particularly good at boom and zoom because it doesn't have very good... It has limited roll rate, and its rudder authority at speed is also pretty weak. So you have to be really careful about planning your shots beforehand. And you can see on that last dive that I put a lot of effort into getting my plane lined up for a nice clean shot, and it paid off. When I was attacking this bomber, I tried to get lined up, but even so, I couldn't keep the guns on him long enough to do much damage. He just swept right on through. So I exited and immediately went evasive. That's a bit of a lesson there, is if you fail an attack on a bomber, even if you are exiting in the opposite direction and escaping at high speed, don't think that's enough. Be evasive as well, because those gunners will reach out from a long way away and tag you, and with the damage model these days, you really can't afford to take hits. So now I'm climbing away. I see that my ally over there is now being chased by, I think, an SB-2M who's managed to get around on him. So I'm climbing over, and I'm going to take a shot on him. But I've also detected at this point, up co-altitude with me, there's an enemy Ki-45 that is climbing to contest altitude. And that's actually why I was flying off in that direction into the sun, is I was thinking about getting myself hidden in the sun and trying to fight back for altitude. But I realized I would wind up in a very long, protracted contest, climbing contest against this Ki-45 if I did that. So what I actually did while I was climbing into the sun there is I stopped, I tabbed over, and I looked at the pilot's score sheet and decided, based on the plane that he was flying and based on his experience level as it appeared from the sheet, that I was willing to just let him have the altitude advantage. I didn't think it was going to be worth the time and effort that it would cost me to get into a protracted climbing contest, and instead I'm just going to camp the bomber spawn, get a few more kills, and then accept the fact that I'm going to have to fight him at a disadvantage when he comes back. But I do have to pay the piper there, as he does come back pretty soon, and attacks me from an advantage. You can see as I was making my dive on that SB-2M there, what a hard job the gunners have. You could see the arcing trail of the bullets from the deflection shot. And now the Ki-45 is above me, he's pushing down. I'm hoping that maybe I can just outrun him in the horizontal, because I do have a faster plane, but he managed to get close enough above me that I'm not going to be able to outrun him. He turned aside a little bit, but then recommitted, and he's chasing me now. He's getting within about 0.8 kilometers, so I'm starting to have to do a gentle weave to avoid getting shot. And now as he closes within about 0.6 kilometers, it's time to get seriously evasive and actually try and shake him off my tail. If I was escaping, if I had a higher speed, then I would not break into a big evasive move. I would just continue with the shallow moves. But I know, in this case, that my plane is a higher performance plane, and so all I had to do was break his shot. And as soon as I got him to overshoot there, I went into some scissors, got him to overshoot, and as soon as he was no longer on my tail, I immediately just leveled out and sailed away. And now I'm back outside of his weapons reach, and I am accelerating and climbing away, and now I have control of the fight again. That's all it took. Unfortunately, that's all it took for me to get in control of the fight, but to make good on it, to actually win the fight, I need to increase my advantage substantially. So my first attempt to resolve this is I put on my wingtip smoke again, which is the universal sign for, hey, look, I'm outrunning you. Don't you realize that chasing me is futile? Why don't you go fight somebody else? Unfortunately, it's also the universal sign for, hey, look, I'm getting away, why don't you chase me some more? So, unfortunately, he took the latter meaning, and he's decided to keep chasing me. And what I seem to find with smoke like this is that when you put on the smoke, your opponent is going to make a decision at that point of whether he's going to keep chasing you. And if he resolves to keep chasing you at that point, then nothing is going to stop. He will keep chasing you all the way up into orbit if he doesn't stop when you first put on smoke. And in this case, he has decided to keep chasing me, but contrary to what I just said, he actually is going to break there. So now you can see he's given up, he's turned away. I don't think it's because he actually gave up on chasing me. I think it's because he saw Pilot 89, who's now back in his Chi-43, my ally, approaching, and he decided that Pilot 89 was a bigger threat than I was, because Pilot 89 was approaching from behind him. So he turned, and I took that advantage to turn as well and climb. I'm trying to stay near the action, but above him. The Chi-45 is now below me, and it's turning up towards me, and I'm trying to constantly put myself over and behind him so that it's as hard as possible. So he has to trade as much energy as possible to get guns in my direction. And I went into a very steep climb there. I don't advocate hammerhead rope-a-dopes in War Thunder. I just don't think it's a good idea for reasons I might explain in a minute. But in that particular case, I knew that he did not have enough energy to get guns all the way up at me. So that's why I went into that high climb. I've taken a shot. I'm extending, looking over my shoulder. You notice that I just fly straight. I don't evade at all until he gets pointed in my direction, because why bother? Why give up the energy? And then I'm looking over my shoulder, waiting to see if he's going to be able to get a shot on me before I'm out of range. And I did one small little evasive duck right as I crossed the 0.7 kilometer threshold, and then I was home free. Obviously, you can get shot from further ranges, but it's not easy. It's hard to make those shots. And there's the kill. You could see just before that as I was waiting for my attack to develop there, as I was orbiting over that fight, that I temporarily put my plane into the horizontal and just sort of floated there. I think of it as being like the Princess Toadstool float jump is something that the P-38 is particularly good at. Is you can be in these looping fights, keeping your energy up, and when it suits your purposes to delay diving down on the enemy again, just go into the horizontal and you'll keep your speed. You may even accelerate a little bit, and then as soon as I had a good deflection shot coming up there, I recommitted, dove back in, and got an easy kill. And now a minute ago I was saying that I don't, and here I'm climbing, I'm in a gradual climb as I return to the fight here, because I can see a couple of dots in the distance above the cloud level, and I want to make sure that I have the advantage when I return to the fight. I was saying a minute ago that I don't really advocate hammerhead rope-a-dopes in War Thunder, at least not in arcade mode. Long-distance gunnery is so easy in arcade mode, especially against a target that is stalled or not maneuvering. And the thing about a hammerhead reversal is that you are basically just changing places with the enemy. It's you're stopping and turning over. Here I'm about to rope-a-dope this TBF, but you'll notice that I don't hammerhead. I keep my speed up. I do a big loop over his plane. My slowest speed during this attack is about 280 kilometers an hour, and now I'm able to close pretty rapidly. I can't remember if I actually get the kill here. I don't think I do. He manages to break, and I can't roll fast enough to keep guns on target. But it was otherwise still a pretty decent attack. I don't advocate hammerheads, because however good your shot is going to be after the hammerhead, you're giving your opponent at least that good a shot before you manage to get reversed. and it's just all too easy for that situation to go wrong. So what I prefer to do instead is do looping fights where I'm constantly looping the aircraft, putting it through big, broad vertical maneuvers, keeping my energy up, and that makes it easier when the opportunity does present, when an enemy stalls out or puts themselves in a bad position, overcommits to climbing, whatever. If you still have your speed at that point, it's a lot easier to close distance and get that shot. And luckily for me, this is a style of fighting that the P-38 does very well with. And here you can see I've lured this P-36 to climb. He is useless, and I get a very easy shot diving on him, doing what I just described there. Now I'm climbing back up. There's a couple of dots at the enemy bomber spawn. I think there is one more person climbing at me still here. Yeah. You can't see him. There he's shooting at me. Didn't get a marker for him in the playback, but here it is. The Buffalo, and he stalls out. And I get a nice easy shot. The P-38 is not an overly maneuverable aircraft, but it handles very well at sort of mid-low speeds. It is very adequate to the task of reversing on a stalled plane and swinging the guns around to get a quick shot at him. And that's all it needs to do. That's the only thing that the only type of maneuvering that the P-38 really needs to be able to do in order to satisfy this fighting style, and it does it quite well. So there I attacked the SBD, which was the trailing plane in that formation. Got out of the way of the Catalina's guns. I was going to let it go because my friend had it on fire there, but the fire went out, so I came back around to take a shot myself. And that was a very unusual shot for me, going heads up with a PBY. I think he was trying to ram me, but I ducked underneath at the last moment, and I could hear his engines as he sailed overhead. Definitely cut it a bit close. Here I've lined up. Notice again the wing alignment, giving me a nice clean shot on this, what was it? I lost track. I don't even remember what type of plane it was. It was either maybe a Hawk or something. And it's interesting in this game, even though I had a very slow start, a relatively slow start, and then spent a lot of time fighting one person, by halfway through this is a very long match, and by halfway through I only had 5 kills. And yet I'm going to have 15 by the end of this, and it's because I just go berserk in the last third. And that's one of the advantages to flying an energy fighter and flying defensively, as I'm doing here, is that when the cards play your way, assuming you stay alive, which you should be able to, and assuming the match goes long enough, which it doesn't always, but it does in this case, you wind up fighting against progressively weaker and weaker opponents as your enemies are reaching further back into their deck of respawns, while you still have your original best plane and are maintaining the positional advantage through the whole fight. And so, even though it's sort of slow to spool up this way, you can have fights where you get a really high score, sort of cashing in on the latter third of the match. So here we got this Yak 1. I believe he was actually chasing me for a little while, but he switched targets onto the 109, and I get an easy shot on him in the process. There's the poor Chi-43 again. Yet again, I get the kill on the target that he was lined up on. I think that's just the luck of the draw. And at this point, the match is almost over. Timer's running out, so holding on to altitude no longer matters, so I dive in to get a shot on that light bomber. Just a little bit of subtle, easy evasion to stay clear of that I-16, and soon enough, I'm clear again. the I-16 switches targets, and it's a cruel world in War Thunder. If you're not chasing, you're being chased, and sure enough, as soon as that I-16 was not chasing me, I went from the hunted back to hunting him. But the match ends before I can take a shot. So we'll never know. For now, at least, he got away. So this has been pretty fun, and relatively easy video to produce in my spare time. So hopefully that will serve and be entertaining for some of my friends, and that'd be an entry point for me to get into YouTube a little bit more, and perhaps hopefully start making a habit of uploading videos more often. And we'll see where it goes from here. Thanks for watching. Such out.